Hi, today I'm going to tell you about all my personality disorders in the past, and as I analyzed my childhood and compared it to the childhood of my daughter, I found out two more signs of psychopathy. So it wasn't easy to analyze my childhood. I remember that in the childhood I didn't have any fear, as I could start fighting with a girl easily. It was for justice, in my opinion, but still I could start fighting with a girl, and I could even beat a boy. But then at some point, I realized this feeling of the fear, but I was a narcissist. So, in my childhood, I was a psychopath. Um, that is a result of a combination of narcissism and sociopathy in one person. But how could I be a sociopath if I told you that sociopathy comes from a man, and I never experienced any aggressive behavior from a man. My grandpa was always warm with me, and he never was aggressive with my grandma when I was small, so I don't remember anything like that. But sometimes my children can attribute male roles to me. As their dad doesn't perform some of his male roles, they attribute these male roles to me. And I just can come to conclusion that I attributed the male roles to my mom. She started working when I was 9 months. She was cold and unemotional with me. She never took care of me, and only my grandma who took care of me. So I can just assume then when I was a toddler, I accepted my grandma as a mom, and I accepted my mom as a dad. So my mom never beat me, but it happened once. So I was talking with a boy through the window. So I was in our apartment and the boy was outside. But as we couldn't hear each other well, we needed to talk very loudly. And at some point, my mom became very furious. He came and started beating me with a slipper, and it was very painful, and I started crying. I couldn't understand why she became so furious. I didn't do anything bad. I was just talking with the boy very loudly, and that's it. But at that moment, I was scared so much that I became a sociopath. So, and automatically, as both my grandma and my mom ashamed me, and I already was a narcissist by that moment, automatically I became a psychopath. And today's situation just helped me to find out one more sign of psychopathy. Earlier, when my daughter didn't feel well, she still wanted to go to school, and I needed to persuade her not to go there. But today, she didn't feel well, and I asked her, "Do you want to go to school?" She told me no. So she's not a psychopath anymore. But when she was a psychopath, she didn't realize how badly or how well she felt, so she couldn't just analyze her physiological condition. And the same was with me when I was small. I remember that in the morning I felt very nauseous, and my grandma told me, don't go to school. But I was very responsible as my daughter. And I told her, no, I will go to school. But at school, I was so nauseous that I started vomiting. So, and it's another sign of the psychopath. There are some physiological needs like hunger, thirst, cold, hot, or when you don't feel well. And the psychopaths very often do not realize some of these needs, or the level, how much hungry they are, or how much cold they are, or how badly they feel. For example, I remember that I couldn't realize that I was thirsty when I was small. Maybe I couldn't realize something more, but I don't remember this. But I remember that in the spring, I just realized that my daughter couldn't understand if she was hot or cold. In the spring or in the fall, the weather usually changes during the day. So in the mornings it is cold, by when school finishes it can be hot. And my children wear more clothes in the morning, but then I tell them, just take off something when you finish the school. But when I met my daughter from the bus, she was she had all clothes on her. She put on in the morning. So my daughter didn't realize that she was hot when the school finished. My daughter couldn't realize how bad she felt, but if she had a scratch on her arm, she could start crying and screaming so much as it was something awful. And I can just assume that some psychopaths do not realize, they do not feel pain when they are scratched or they have bruises or something like that. And I believe that there are psychopaths who cause pain to themselves. And I can assume that there are people who feel so desperate that they start using more and more piercing. And I can assume that these people are also psychopaths. They just try to numb their inner pain of outer pain. So, but they're just the psychopath. So, taking into account all this, I can find out one more sign of the psychopathy. So people on the individualization level are good with others, but they can be bad with themselves, as they can say no, for example, as they can protect their own boundaries, so they can sacrifice themselves for others. People with the personalities disorders but without psychopathy, they are good with themselves, but they can be bad with others because, for example, they criticize someone behind his or her back. And people with the psychopathy, they are bad both with others and with themselves, because sometimes they just don't realize their physiological needs, and and sometimes they can even sacrifice themselves for some purposes. For example, my mom is a narcissistic psychopath, and I always asked her, please put all dirty dishes into the dishwasher. But she continued to wash the dishes with her hands, just because she wanted to sacrifice her to make me feel guilty, or maybe for some other reasons. So I was a sociopath and a psychopath till some moment. I had two faces. After school, I was very brave. I could fight with something, but at school I was an excellent student and I have the excellent behavior. And it was one day at the elementary school when some girls and me started running around the classroom. And at some point the teacher came to the classroom, and there was too messy. There were too many people. She couldn't realize who was running. So she just asked to sit everyone and to stand up only those girls who were running. And some girls stood up. But I didn't believe that I was guilty. I didn't want to take responsibility, so I didn't stand up. And she wrote unsatisfactory behavior to the school diaries to those girls who stood up. And I was just happy that I didn't have this notice in my school diary. But the next day, the father of one of those girls who stood up came to school, and he talked to a teacher, and he said something to her. And after that, she started talking, and she started talking about the honesty and about how it is important to be honest and sincere and so on. And I just realized that he said something, but I don't know what it was regarding that situation, and I don't know if he said who didn't stand up. Did he give the names of those girls who didn't stand up, or just said there were just some girls who didn't stand up? But I was scared that moment. I was scared so much because the teacher who believed that I am an excellent student, I always had the excellent behavior, she could realize that I was a liar. And I was scared so much that at that moment I stopped being a sociopath, but I continued to be a narcissist. And I stopped being a narcissist when I met two guys between my ex-boyfriend and my husband. So with some guy we talked on the phone for 2 months when I was in relations with my ex-boyfriend. We didn't date, but we talked on the phone. And after I broke up with my boyfriend, we had intimate relations with that guy. And after those intimate relations, he told me that he didn't want to continue our relations anymore. So, and it was a big shame for me because I believed that I was a beautiful girl, but he just didn't want to continue those relations. And there was another guy whom I met on the internet before I met my husband. We dated for 2 weeks, every day for 2 weeks without intimate relations. But at some point he told me, "So I believe that you're not very clever." Actually, he told me that I'm stupid. So he didn't want to continue relations. And it was also the big shame for me because I believed that I was clever and smart and so on. So it was another big shame for me. So, and after those two shames were too big for me, that actually maybe even the first shame was too big for me, that I could realize it and accept it. So when I met my husband, I was already on the individualization level. So my example is one more example that it's possible to get rid of psychopathy, that is a combination of the sociopathy and narcissism, and it's possible to get rid of these personality disorders. Thank you. Bye bye.